Thanks for visiting the patient and the weather today. I'm meteorologist Al Peterlin. I'd like to talk about the weather health stresses for May 22nd, 2026. We do keep additional graphics at tpatw.com. We also maintain a patient weather storefront on Amazon. Looking at the surface map for Friday and then on into the weekend, you can see lots of unsettled weather across the eastern half of the country. There is a cool front sort of snaking its way all the way across the country from about Denver back to the Texas Panhandle, on back up into the Dakotas, all the way back down into Kentucky, and then swinging back around south, cutting all the way through Alabama over to Atlanta, and then right up along the coast through D.C. Looking at the vitality index, which is the measure of the individual weather elements that have an impact, and you can see that most of the activity here is centered up and down the high plains into the northern Rockies. A little bit of unsettled weather here still along the Gulf, and something just hanging on the coast. Pressure changes will not be all that dramatic, although we do have some rising pressure here in Colorado, but we have falling pressure here in Minnesota, Wisconsin, across to Illinois and to Indiana. Really not a lot of significant pressure change going on. Temperature change a little more significant. The really high temperatures across the east have diminished back toward more normal levels, and we have the heat stretching back up the plains from the high plains into the northern Rockies and mainly up the plains itself. Looking at the change in dew point temperatures, you can see that also is very interesting as we have increasing dew points across the plains into the Ohio Valley. We have decreasing dew points up the high plains toward the Rockies. Looking at instability of the thundershower impact, and you can see it's starting to become a little bit more southerly again, up through Texas and right along the Gulf, still hanging on here about the Atlantic seaboard. The really interesting changes for Friday and on into the weekend will be the change in oxygen availability. You can see we do have some risk of migraine right along the coastal areas of California, rather shallow, but right along the coast of California. We have an interesting, call it a line of migraine risk from central Nevada, across central Utah into central Colorado, and then trying to cut its way south into the Texas Panhandle. Note we also have a risk of migraines north and South Dakota, just touching the northernmost sections of Minnesota. Falling to the south, we have some risk of migraine across central Louisiana into really western Mississippi, and then a significant area of migraine risk across Alabama and Georgia into South Carolina and North Carolina, and then becoming more coastal along Maryland, Delaware, into New Jersey, very much southeastern Pennsylvania, and then across Connecticut into eastern Massachusetts and very coastal Maine. Looking at the risk of asthma and arthritis, significant area from Wyoming into eastern Montana. Another area of asthma risk from West Texas and even East Texas, all the way from San Antonio through Dallas, on up across Oklahoma, especially Oklahoma City, and then on up into western Iowa and southern Minnesota. And then we jump into the Ohio Valley, Kentucky, southern Indiana, Illinois, and across Michigan. Little bit of asthma risk right here along the Canadian border. Thanks for visiting the patient and the weather. Your comments are appreciated. And if you hurt, tell us where you're located.